right, you guys, it's episode 81 of Inner Demons, and without further ado, I'm going to get straight to it. So this is two down, four to go. I'm going to see if I can get one more done. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. It's starting to get late, but I'm up for it. And I know you guys been waiting, so let's get it done. So episode 80, I pretty much had left off where it was during a weekend where we had went up on a batch of wine and we were drinking in Second East. And you know, I felt like the opportunity was a perfect time to confront Lencho on why he dusted that kite. And, you know, I thought he was going to deny it. Like, you know, the classic Lencho always avoids confrontation at every cost. But he actually admitted it. He was like, yeah, bro, it was like, you know, I dusted it, but he wouldn't admit why he really dusted it. He really dusted it because he didn't trust me. He thought I was going to do something with that kite. Maybe he thought I was going to turn it in, drop it. I don't know. I don't know what he was thinking, but, you know, he said that he did it because it was so hot that, you know, he was panicking over there. He started hyperventilating and he didn't want that kite to end up somewhere in the toilet, no matter where it went. It's a bunch of bullshit. Anyways, so that's pretty much where he had left off. Now, during the next couple of weeks, you know, Lencho made a lot of the same mistakes that I made when I came into the county jail. When he was on the fourth floor, he didn't really have an opportunity to do what he was doing in Second East because it's a different setup. Up there on the fourth floor, they're big dorms and you don't come out together, and it's kind of hard, you know, to relay information to somebody that's on the phone, go back and forth. You know, he would have to write something down on a piece of paper, give it to somebody, tell them, hey, go make this phone call. And it would have been kind of hard for him to facilitate it like that. But when he was in Second East, being on the tier with Manos and Looney, it's an open tier, meaning, you know, we're locked in the cells, but there's bars. So you can pretty much hear everybody on the tier talking. That's how open it is. And Lencho would have Manos and Looney get the phone, and then he would pretty much stand there on his gate and tell them what to relay to. There was a couple of females that they had out there that were like their information hubs. They were the ones that would facilitate all the information. They had a couple of people calling in from the fourth floor. And these females were also tied in with Lencho's wife, Debbie, who is going to be a huge part of everything that just went all bad for Lencho. Lencho thought he was on top of his game. Lencho thought that, you know, his girl was deeply rooted in his corner, that, you know, she was going to bat for him and she was on his side, and that she was going to, you know, be out there on the streets taking care of all his affairs, and that everything was going to be just cool. She was going to get all his affairs, you know, in order out there, and that, you know, she was his other half, as he used to say. You know, let me tell you guys this about Lencho's wife, Debbie. And this is not any kind of you know, hit taken at her. I'm not trying to, I got nothing against her. I got nothing against Debbie. I don't know her personally, but you know, I would hear how Lencho would be out there with her when he would meet with other C's out there. They would meet at somebody's house or wherever they were meeting out there. There would be about 5 or 6 C's out there, and Lencho would come in with this girl, and he'd have her either sitting next to him or on his lap, which for one was out of pocket, because these meetings were for the purpose of discussing organization business. The women weren't supposed to be there. You weren't supposed to bring your old lady. This wasn't some type of like weekly get together where you bring your wife or your girl and your kids. This was exclusively for all the carnals that were out there. So everybody else would show up the way that they were supposed to show up. They'd be by themselves, and you know, they understood that this function right here was to discuss business, and a lot of it was networking out there, things that were going on, things that she did not need to hear. But Lencho, you know, Lencho thinking that he was just above the law out there, above, you know, protocols, the rules, and what's normally done. We don't involve women in our affairs like that. To some extent, we utilize them for different things, but they don't sit in on our juntas like that, our get-together. The whole reason why Lencho had his girl there was because he wanted her to see him as a leader. He wanted her to see him speak, like he was a leader, like he was the one that was out there in control, that everybody else had to listen to him. He was basically, he was showing out in front of his girl. He wanted her to see, that side of the business affairs that we were doing out there. And again, it's got nothing to do with Debbie, but the women are not supposed to go to those types of meetings, period. I've never brought my lady. If I was going to bring my lady or my wife or something like that, I would definitely leave her like in the living room with everybody else's girls or wives. Even if I even brought her to a function like that, she would be somewhere else. She wouldn't be sitting right there on my lap or next to me. But that's what Lencho, that's what Lencho was all about. I know that I had Nuestra Familia tattooed on the back of my head. I had it blasted back there so everybody and their mother could see it. And I did it. Some of it was because I was showing out. Some of it was because I wanted people to know what I was about. But some of it was also because I had done almost 10 years in the shoe at that time. I was validated in the way that I was looking at it. I was like, you know what, fuck them. They validated me. This is what they got me. They're identifying me as this. They put a label on me. So you know what? I'm going to go ahead and blast it across the back of my head. And, anybody and everybody who wants to see it can see it now. So my point is I know that I did that. Part of that was because I wanted people to know what I was about. But Lencho took it to another level. He preyed on, the title, the NF title. He wanted everybody to know he was an NF member. So my point is, I don't want to sound like a hypocrite. I had that tattoo on the back of my head because I wanted people to know what I was about. But that was the extent of it. Lencho took it to another level. His whole thing was everything that he did, he played off of the title. He let everybody out there on the streets know he was NF. He used the title for personal gain, to get drugs, to get money. He used it to try to get women, and it didn't work. He was so grimy and greasy that a lot of the times when we would go out and we would meet females out there in San Jose, they didn't want to mess with him. I swear, it's true story. I can't make it up. I remember a couple of times when I was with them, and we went to his spot, the place that was the only spot in San Jose that he wanted to always go to, was the place, because that was the only bar where people liked him, was the place. He had everybody in there brainwashed into thinking that he was like some kind of general of Northern California at that time, that he had that whole area. So it was always, let's go to the place. So anyway, we go over there, we meet a couple of females. I remember we were in there shooting pool, and there was some females in there. They came in, and one of them got up. We started playing pool, me and one of them. I think she was with two friends. And, at the end of the night, after shooting some pool with them and buying them a couple of drinks, I was like, hey, let's cut out and let's go to the homie's pad. Homie lives close by, and they were good with it. So we shot over there, and, the one that I met, I was with her, and one of his boys ended up showing up, Pookie from San Jose. I don't know, I remember what hood he's from. Pookie was a good dude, David Bermudez. So anyways, he shows up. He tries to hook up with one of the other ones. She doesn't want to get with him. The other one, I was like, hey, hook up with the homie, we'll whoop. And she was like, She was like, nah, hell no. She's like, I'm cool. So, Lencho thought he was some kind of Casanova out there when we go out there with these women, but none of them wanted to fuck with them. I swear. There was probably like one or two out of all the ones that we met that kicked it with them, and then later on they were sorry that they even had anything to do with them, because then we turned into a fatal attraction. So anyways, let me get off back on what I was on, so before I lose track. So we're down there in Second East, and as time goes on, he's making some of the same mistakes that I made. He's in the jail. He's in a situation where he's trying to get a lot of the money that he left on the streets off the streets. And he's utilizing his old lady to do it. He's having her meet people out there, and they're on the phone. He's got Looney and Manos on the phone constantly trying to track people down, trying to, find out where the money's at out there on the streets. And I'm listening to him. I've told you guys this in a couple of the other episodes. I would tell them, stop making phone calls for this dude. Make that dude get on the phone and make his own phone calls. He's utilizing you guys to do his dirty work, and you guys are going to get caught up. Why aren't you guys listening to me? You guys don't see what happened to me and everybody that got caught up with me. A lot of the case was premised on the phone calls, and it just continued to grow from there. It escalated. We ended up picking up sales, conspiracies, possessions, and it just kept on going and going. It almost got to the point where they started giving us assaults for removals and attempted murders and all kinds. It just got crazy. But nobody paid attention to what happened to us. They just continued to make their own mistakes. So eventually I got tired of warning Manos and Looney. I'm like, hey man, I've told you guys plenty of times, I can hear everything you're saying. I guarantee you're going to get caught up. I promise you. The only way that you're not is if they just gave up on listening to these phone calls, and you guys are lucky. But I guarantee you, them dudes downstairs, classification, they're burning those CDs. Every time you guys get off the phone, they're burning those CDs and they're sending them out to that agency. You know what I mean? But anyways, they would have to learn the hard way, and they would. So anyways, it was around February of 2007. I'm down there. Obviously, I've been down there on the tier, on an active tier again with the homies, probably for about, at this point, it's about 10 months. Altogether would be about a good 17 months before shit started happening again. But at this point, it's about 10 months. And, I'm on cruise control. There's nothing I can do. My case is kind of like in limbo at that point. It came back from the California Supreme Court that I think I already told you guys. It was a one-liner. I got denied. So from that point, my case went back to the courts, and it was set to, go to another motion, and it was going to start picking back up again. But at that point, I was just kicking back, waiting. So I want to say at that point, most of my co-defendants were gone. Most of them pled out. Most of them got probation with a bunch of strikes. Like I told you guys before, they okey-doked them. We'll go ahead and let you guys out. We'll give you probation. But what they did is they gave them a bunch of strikes. A lot of these dudes didn't even have strikes. They didn't have none, but they stacked them up. You got 2 strikes, you got 2 strikes, you got 2. So that when they caught their next felony, it triggered that 3-strike case. Now they're doing life. So, I mean, basically what these cops did is they dangled freedom in front of their faces and an opportunity to get out, but they had to take these 2 strikes and probation. For them, they're winning because they know these guys, they're out there, they're young, they're at an age where they're still going to continue to get involved in criminal activity. There's no question about it. We'll go ahead and give them probation, stack them up with 2 strikes. They're going to go back out there. They're going to get right back in the mix because it's still in their blood. And then guess what? They're coming back on a life case. We can strike them out. So most of them had took those deals. There was just, I remember it was just me, Joel Beta, and maybe 2 or 3 other cats. But they were all in the process of getting dealt out. Baby G, Eric Zarate, he was one of them. He would end up taking something like 12 years. He was still there. I want to say Sykes was still there. He would end up taking something like 6 with some strikes. But mostly everybody was gone. My case had pretty much, it had ran its course. And again, it was just me and Joe, what we were going to do. Being that we got indicted, it bypassed prelim and all that. So we were going to go straight to trial. And that's what we were gearing up for. So anyways, it was around, I want to say it was March 16th. Yeah, it was March 16th, 2007. And I remember, while these guys were making all these phone calls, Jerry Chavez, Bones, I forget where he's from, but Bones, he's the one that had a lot of the hookups. He had the burnout 3-ways. And, he had a plug out there on the street. I think it was his old lady or a relative that, constantly had three-way plugs so that these guys could continue to make their phone calls, because at that time phone calls in the Santa Clara County Jail were outrageous. Anyways, I want to say that the phone calls were anywhere from like $7 to $10. So, over time that shit added up. They would end up turning into like $500-600 within a month of time. It was easy to run a bill up like that. And a lot of dudes were, myself included, would not call home because they didn't want to burden their family like that. It got to the point where I would only call my mom like maybe once or twice a month, once every other week, because it was like $20 added onto her phone bill. And she didn't have money like that. So she would tell me to call, but I didn't want to put that burden on her. Vicky was in the same situation. She was out there, she was still living with her mom. No, at this point, I take that back. She stayed with her mom for, I want to say, a good 3-4 months. And some of my family, I had an aunt, one of my dad's sisters, that ended up helping her get into an apartment. My aunt stepped up, paid her first and last month's rent. She helped her with the car notes, and it took a lot of help to get her into a place out there in Woodland. So she got an apartment out there, and she was, everything was cool. She was staying there. She didn't like being out there by herself because she didn't know anybody, but there was nothing else that we really could do at that point. She wanted to be somewhere kind of like in between where I was at and Ukiah. And every now and again, she would drive out to Santa Clara to come see me. So, it was around this time that she started to get sick. I remember that, I would call her here and there once every couple of weeks, and we'd be talking, and all of a sudden she started coughing. She started coughing, and they were coughs that I've never heard before. They were deep, deep coughs. And I could tell just by listening to her that like her lungs were starting to fill up with fluid. And I knew enough about, her illness. I knew enough about lupus. I had studied on it. I read as much as I could about it. I had documents on it. I had people send me stuff off the internet. So I knew enough about it to understand what was going on. Her thing was, her lupus was attacking her heart. So her valves would degrade over time. They would deteriorate, and that would cause, it would start to leak around her heart. There was like pockets of fluid forming around her heart. So something needed to be done sooner or later. They ended up putting her on dialysis. That's something that she didn't want to do. I used to have to talk to her on the phone and listen to her cry about it, that, her hands used to get real cold because they basically take all your blood out of you and run it through a machine and clean it. And you'd have to wear gloves because your hands would get real cold when they suck all the blood out of you. And she was just like, you know what? I'm tired of getting poked. I'm tired of going through all these medical procedures, and you're not out there. Her morale would go up and down. Sometimes I call her and she'd be okay. She'd be doing everything she was supposed to be doing out there. She'd go to her doctor. She'd make sure that she was going to all her checkups. She was taking all her medication. When I was out there, that's what I used to, that's what I used to do. I would make sure she would take all her medication, make sure she'd go to all her doctor's appointments. I was involved. But now that I was gone, it bothered her that she was having to go through all this stuff by herself. That's one thing I think I did to her that, although my intentions were good, it ended up having an adverse effect on her. And that's taking away her independence. She was used to doing everything herself. Nobody would take care of her. She always did it herself, whether it was the doctor stuff, her bills. She had, because of her heart condition and all that, and her lupus, she was always on SSI, obviously, but she was able to pay her own bills, pay for, her own car notes and all that stuff, her phone bill, electricity and all that. She managed barely, she barely got by, but she did it. When I hooked up with her, I took all that away. She didn't have to pay no bills. I made sure that she took care of all the medical stuff and all that. So anyways, when I would hear cough, these deep coughs, I understood what was going on. Her lungs were filling up with fluid. and around her heart was she was building up fluid around her heart. So I'd have to have conversations with her and tell her, you need to go to the doctor. And she would get mad and she'd be like, I'm fucking tired of getting poked, boxer. You don't understand. I'm tired of this shit. You're in there, I'm out here. I got to do all this shit by myself. And there was nothing I could do. There was nothing I could do about it, but sometimes fight with her and tell her. So, I mean, well, what am I doing then? What am I supposed to be doing? You want me to fight for my freedom to come back out there to you, but you're not going to fight, to keep yourself healthy? All this is going to be for nothing. Then I might as well just go to prison and spend the rest of my life in prison. Why am I fighting? So we'd have these conversations back and forth, back and forth. And, there was no telling who I would get when I would call her. Sometimes I would get that, that person that was, positive and everything was okay and she was healthy and she was feeling okay. Then there'd be times where I could just tell, by the first 5 words that came out her mouth that she's sick, she's not feeling good. And the other thing about lupus, or at least with her, is she used to get these migraine headaches that were so bad. I'm talking about she would have to lay in a room that was pitch black dark because any light, anything would just cause excruciating pain to the point to where it made her nauseous and she started throwing up. That's how bad her migraines got. They were so bad. I can't even tell you guys how bad they were. I used to see her, struggle with having to deal with those. Anyway, so it's March 16th, 2007. And it's just another day on the tier. I haven't talked to my mom in a while. I haven't talked to Vicky in a while because, again, I didn't want to burden them with the bill, the phone bill. So I remember that day, Jerry Chavez, he was like, hey, does anybody else want to use the phone on the tier? Because Manos and Looney, they used to pretty much keep the phone because they were the ones they were the secretaries on the tier. So when nobody else was using it, they always had it posted up in front of themselves. So, nobody really said nothing. And Jerry, he called down to me, Bones. He called down to me and he was like, hey, Box. He's like, I just got a brand new 3-way. He's like, man, he's like, go ahead and run it, bro. He's like, run that shit up. It's there's like $600 on the phone. He's like, you got somebody you want to reach out to, go ahead and reach out to your family. They knew it was my birthday coming up on the 25th of March. So they were like, you know what, reach out to your family, man, call home and see how moms and them are doing or something, man. He's like, just use it. That's what it's there for. And I was like, nah, bro, I'm good, bro. You know what I mean? I really didn't want to make a habit of using the phone. Well, for one, it used to stress me out. For two, like I said, I told you guys, when I would call, a lot of the times I would get bad news or I would hear in a bad way and it would just upset me. So I try to call as less frequent as I could. Anyways, he encouraged me to use the phone that day. He was like, man, seriously, bro, go ahead and use it. And I was like, nah, man. And then at some point, something told me, like, you know what? Just use it. Just use it. Call is free. So I'm like, all right, bro, fuck it. When they come through, I'm gonna go ahead and grab it next. When I'm done, I'm gonna go ahead and shoot it down to you. He's like, yeah, bro. So they came in. I want to say they came in and did a pill call or something. And, I asked them for the phone. So they went over there, they grabbed the phone, popped my tray slot open, closed up Looney and Monos' tray slot. And I thought about, man, who should I call? Mom's. I'll call her later. I'm gonna go ahead and reach out to Vicky, right? So I call her up and she was, well, this was about, let me take that back. A week before this, I had called Vicky. I want to say it was the beginning of March. I had called her and we started talking and her coughing started, it was like more frequent. It's like almost, at first she started coughing like a little bit. I'd have a conversation with her. Maybe she coughed 2 or 3 times during the whole 15-minute phone call. But now when I got her on the phone a week before this other phone call I was about to make, she was coughing frequently. It was like every couple words, you know what I mean? And I knew again what was happening. I was trying to encourage her to go to the doctors. It got so bad that night that she couldn't talk on the phone. I literally had to hang up with her, call my mom, tell my mom to call the ambulance, and that's what they did. She called the ambulance for her. Ambulance went over there. They got her. They admitted her in the hospital. That's how bad it was. So they admitted her in the hospital, and her blood pressure had got so low that they thought she was going to die that night. So you guys will understand this later, but she was like kind of in and out. And the only thing she was concerned about at that point was her necklace. She had a necklace that she never took off. And I guess she told the doctors or one of the nurses, can you take off my necklace and make sure that, my husband gets it? She thought she was going to die that night. So they took the necklace off, they put it aside, and thankfully nothing happened that night. She ended up recovering within the next day or two. And, somebody picked her up from the hospital. I want to say her mom's boyfriend came down from Ukiah, and I had told her, you know what, go up there and spend some time with your mom. You need to be around family right now, somebody that can take care of you. I don't want you out there in Woodland by yourself. Go up there and at least spend a couple of weeks with them. So that's what she did. She let them drive her up there, and she stayed with her mom. Plan was to stay with her for a couple of weeks. So now let's get back to the phone call I'm about to make. So it's March 16th, 2007. And, I end up deciding to use the phone. So I get the phone and I decide to call her. I call her, and, I could tell again within the first few words that she was kind of sick. You know, her spirits were down. She wasn't her normal bubbly self that she usually is. I heard it in her, right? And it was just a real kind of matter of fact type of conversation. You know what I mean? How you doing? Doing okay. She's like, I don't know. She's like, you just need to hurry up and come home. What do you mean? She's like, I don't think I'm gonna be around too much longer. And I'm like, why are you talking like that? Every time I try to get myself motivated and I'm trying to fight over here to get back to you, you bust my bubble and say shit like that. So what are you gonna do? So, she tells me, she's like, Boxer, I'm doing everything that I can do. She was like, but sooner or later my time's gonna run out. She's like, I don't know how much longer I'm gonna be alive. She's like, you just need to hurry up and fight your case. So obviously, there was a sense of urgency that she felt. So I talked to her that night. I tell her, she tells me she's gonna send me a money order, and I tell her, you know what, don't worry about it. Keep the money. I'm good. You know what I mean? And she talked about trying to come visit me. She was just like, I don't feel good right now. I'll try to come within the next couple of weeks, but she's like, I'm just not feeling good. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to encourage her to go see her doctor. And again, the conversation, it was almost like now it's almost like 17 years later, but I can still hear that conversation like it was yesterday. So, we talk, and it doesn't really sound like she's happy to talk to me. She's happy that I called, because she was like, man, I haven't talked to you forever. And, I'm glad you called. But at the same time, I could feel she's not really feeling good. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna let you rest. I'm gonna let you rest. I'll try to call you again this week if I can. I'll run it through one of the homies right here. He's got a burnout. That's how I was able to call you without calling you collect. And she told me, she's like, I got a letter that I wrote you. It's already, I barely feel like writing right now, but I'm gonna scribble you something real quick and I'll send it out this week. And I'm like, cool. You know what I mean? Just I hope you go and see your doctor. So, anyways, that was it. We hung up. I told her I loved her. I told her take care of herself, that I was okay, not to send me no money. So the next day, the next day is March 17th, 2007. And, I'm on the tier. It was probably about, it's probably about 5 o'clock in the evening. And boom, somebody comes through the front gate. So anytime that front gate opens up, somebody up there in the front would be like, I forget what they used to say, walking or something like that. So I look through the crack of my door and I can see Dela Cruz coming down the tier. And he's by himself and it's like he's doing a beeline somewhere. He's not walking slow like he usually does, talking to everybody on the tier. He's coming somewhere towards the back bar. So he comes and he's getting closer and closer. I back away from the cell and I'm standing there like I'm watching TV, and he comes right in front of my cell. He's like, "Hey man," he's like, "I need to talk to you." And I'm like, "About what?" And he's like, I need to talk to you. I need to pull you out of the cell." And I'm like, "You can't do that, man." You know what I mean? I'm on an active tier. So, I had to tell him, anything that you got to say to me, you can say it right here on the tier. You can't come up here and just pull me off the tier. I'm already in a shaky, I'm already on shaky ground. And you want to come up here and try to pull me out, like you want to have some kind of conversation. You're gang intel, man. That's not a good look for me. He's like, "Man, it's important. Just trust me. I'm not gonna bullshit you. It's something that I need to talk to you, man. It's about family." So when he said family, I'm like, fuck, what could he be talking about? And the only thing that came through my mind when he said family is like, something happened to somebody. So I had to find out what he was talking about. I'm like, okay, I cuffed up. Everybody on the tier heard what was going on. So, nobody was tripping, but obviously they're gonna want to know where I went, what we talked about. So, anyways, so we walk off the tier and we get in the elevator. Right there, I'm like, "What's up, man? What are you pulling me off the tier for?" And he's like, "Dude, I'll talk to you when we get downstairs." He's like, "I don't want to talk about it right here." He's like, "You'll understand." So now he's got me tripping. I'm like, "Man, what the hell could this dude be talking about? Somebody pass away?" That's the only thing that's what came to my mind. I'm thinking, my grandmother. My grandmother's ailing at this point, and she's like blind. She's going deaf. So I'm thinking, oh man, and I'm close with my grandmother. So anyways, I don't say nothing else to him. I wait till we get downstairs. We get into the OTR room, and we sit down. So he tells me, he's like, "Look, man," it's like, technically I could get in trouble for doing what I'm doing, but you've been here forever in this county jail. I got a lot of respect for you. And since I found out, I wanted to be the one to tell you, although it's not my job. But he's like, "Look, man, earlier today, Vicky passed away." And when he told me that, I was like, "What?" He was like, "I got a phone call from," he said Vicky's mom's name. And when he said that, I was like, I was shocked. I was sitting there trying to digest this. And he's like, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry that I'm the one that told you, the chaplain was supposed to tell you, but I wanted to be the one to tell you, man. You got an aunt that's standing out in front of the county jail waiting to see you right now. It's an emergency visit." And I was like, "Dude, are you kidding me?" And he's like, I wish I was, man. I wish I was." And I'm not gonna lie, man. When he told me that, it took me a minute to process it. And when something like that happens, I don't care, how tough you are. I don't care, you know, how callous you become in this lifestyle, but it broke me down. It devastated me. I sat there and the tears just poured out like a baby. I was sitting there, I was just like, "Man, I'm sorry, man." You know what I'm saying? I'm apologizing to him, telling him, he was like, "Dude, hey man, let that shit out." So I sit there like a baby and I'm letting it out. I'm like, damn, you know what I mean? there's all kinds of feelings going through me right now. I'm feeling like, you know what, some of this is my fault. I feel like me getting in this situation probably sped up her lupus. What was she thinking when this happened? What's her mom thinking? I'm going through all these different scenarios, and I'm like, man, fucking, I'm done. Just take me back to my cell. I'm ready to get the fuck out of this county jail. At that point, I felt like, a big part of what I cared about out there was gone. And, a lot of the reason why I was in trouble was because I was trying to preserve that. And ultimately it got away from me anyway. So, I was like, man, I'm cool. I just want to go back up to my cell. I'm like, he's like, you got to visit, man. And I'm like, my aunt, I hadn't seen my aunt in years. I tripped out that she was willing to come up like that, but she obviously knew I was gonna be devastated. So I was like, all right, man, run me down there. So they ran me down to the visiting room, and I visit with her. As soon as I walk in, she's already bawling. You know what I mean? And I sit down and we talk. We have a visit. It was a cool visit. It was a tough visit, obviously. And then I go back up to myself. Visit's over. I go back up there. I hit the tier, and I didn't feel like I needed to go up there and put a mask on or act like I was tough. I went up there and I stopped by Stretch Yourself. And I'm like, look, bro, my wife passed away. I'm cool. I'm cool. Obviously, I'm gonna be going through it. Nothing's changed, bro. You know, I'll work it out. Time will make it easier, bro. But that's what happened. That's the reason why, he pulled me out, was to let me know that she passed away earlier today. So he was like, oh, bro, man, I'm sorry, bro. So the homies, they end up sending a filter, obviously, and they all send their condolences. I'm like, I'm cool, man. They're trying to holler at me, and I'm like, man, really, I just need to just take some time to just kick back. I really don't feel like being social right now. So I want to say I stayed up, bullshit you guys not. I stayed up for like 3 days straight. I couldn't sleep. I was just thinking about everything that had happened. You know, I want to say that I stayed up so long, I started to hallucinate. There was one night when I was laying there in bed and I thought I seen her come to my door. She like came to my door. I looked up at my door for some reason. Something made me look up, and then she just came around the corner and looked, and she told me, she was like, "It's okay. I'm okay." And when she said that, I'm laying there looking at her, and I'm not religious. I don't believe. I mean, I believe in a higher power. I believe that there's that there's obviously a God. We're here for some reason, but I'm just not religious. I'm not really into religion, and I don't believe in things like that. But like I said, I was probably hallucinating because of the lack of sleep. But I looked up and I seen her, and she stood there for a minute. She said what she said, and then she walked away. She basically told me that she was okay, that everything was gonna be all right, but that not to worry, that she was okay. So, anyways, that was probably like the third night I stayed up. Anyway, when that happened, obviously the county jail, they knew about it. I think Dela Cruz got in trouble for telling me because the chaplain was supposed to tell me. He got in trouble for that. And, at one point they were trying to get me to move to the observation cell for like 3 days or something. They wanted to put me on suicide watch. I was like, man, it's not that fucking serious. You guys just need to leave me the fuck alone. They kept coming to my cell. It was like, you okay? They sent a psych over there. They sent a chaplain. I'm like, I don't want to talk to none of you people. I just want to be left the fuck alone. Can you guys respect that? I'm not going to no observation cell. I'm good. I'm gonna get through it, man. But you guys keep popping up at my door, fucking trying to talk to me, and I'm not trying to talk to none of you motherfuckers, man. So eventually they got the hint. They stopped coming to my door. They stopped, with the observation shit, and they left me alone. I don't know what they were telling the night officers, but a couple times when I was laying there, I look up and I see a CO standing there. There was this one named Five Pound. It was a cool ass Samoan cat. And I'm laying there. I look up and he's just standing there, just staring. And as soon as he see me look, he's like, "Hey, I'm sorry, boxer." He's like he was apologizing, not behind the loss of my wife, but that he had to come over there and kind of like intrude on my space because I guess they wanted to make sure I was moving or what. I don't know. But time had a way of kind of, I had to accept it. I couldn't let this right here, break my resolve. I couldn't let it throw me off course. I couldn't let it affect me like that. It tore me up. Make no mistake about it. It tore me up. And you'll in the next episode, I had to get this shit out. Somehow, somewhere I was like a time bomb. I needed to get it out because I was ready to take it out on somebody. I'm looking at a life case, the situation with the homies, even though it was better, it was still kind of hanging over my head. And then I lose her. So I was like on edge waiting to just take off on somebody. CO, inmate, it didn't matter. And that would end up happening. You guys will find out about that in the next episode. The one thing that I avoided, I want to say at least for like a week. I called my mom and I talked to her. I got tears and she apologized. I talked to my stepfather. That was a difficult conversation, but the one that was the most difficult was me calling Vicky's mom. She wanted me to call, and she had sent a message and she was like, "It's important that he calls. I really need to ask him something." So I finally muster up enough, strength to call her because I knew it was going to be a tough conversation. And I call, and as soon as she realizes it's me, she breaks down. She starts crying. She was like, "My baby, she waited to talk to you. She had been sick, and I could tell the last couple of weeks of her life was rough. She was, she was struggling with going to the doctors, and she was just getting sicker and sicker. But it was almost like she was waiting for something, and then you called. She's like, then you called that Friday, and you talked to her, and she was like, when she hung up with you, her spirits were she was giddy, she was happy. She was like, he finally called. I got to talk to him, and so I asked her mom, what happened? How did this happen? And her mom told me that. Well, before I get into that, her mom had told me, she was like, look, you know how Vicky was with her chain. She had a little gold chain and it had it was a cross, and she never took that chain off nowhere. That was the same chain I told you guys about when she went to the hospital. She was telling the doctor, make sure my husband gets it. Well, they couldn't find the chain. Nobody could find it. When she passed away, it wasn't on her neck. So everybody was like, where's the chain at? Her mom wanted it for sentimental reasons, or she wanted to hold it for me, but they wanted to find it. So she asked me, she was like, is there a chance you know where her chain's at? Do you know? She tell you she put it somewhere? I had no idea. I had no idea. Anyways, I'll tell you guys like this. Later on, I want to say it was like 2 or 3 months later, her mom was cleaning her room and her mom found it in one of her drawers, and it crushed her because when she found it, she thought about it and she was like, you know what? This meant that at some point she took off her chain. She put it in her drawer knowing that she was about to pass away. She put it there so her mom could find it. And then she passed away. So her mom told me that, she was struggling that last week. And then that night when I talked to her, she was cool that night. Everything was okay. In the morning, she woke up and she had to do dialysis that morning. So she laid down to take a nap like she normally did. She got up, she ate something, breakfast, and she laid back down. And her mom said, like, she usually lay down for like an hour. So 2 hours that went by, 2.5, her mom went to check on her. She was gone. So, she passed away in her sleep. Did she feel any pain? I don't know. Something I asked myself, over and over. I'd like to think that she didn't, but with the type of heart problems that she had, 3 open heart surgeries. They had to go in and keep on replacing her valve in her chest, the valve that connected her heart to like one of her main arteries. The I forget what the name of that valve is. I used to know all this shit like the back of my hand. But anyways, that's what ended up killing her is the fluid around her heart. Her heart ended up becoming so enlarged that they wanted to put a mechanical valve in, but she wouldn't let them do it. She wouldn't let them do it. She was like, I've done 3 open heart surgeries. You guys have cracked my chest plate 3 times. I'm not doing it again. And I was being selfish at the time. I was like trying to get her to do it. But, when I really thought about it, it's like, damn, I'm scared to go to the doctor to get like a regular procedure done, let alone, she went and got open heart surgery 3 times. That's crazy. So, that's what ended up happening. All the things that I talked about as far as my wife, I knew she was in a delicate situation, and then she ended up passing away. So, this right here, I think with a lot of the homies that were over there in the Santa Clara County Jail, this kind of gave credence to, everything that had happened with the phone calls. A lot of them realized that, damn, bro, his girl really was sick. He was really trying to keep her alive, and it wasn't enough in the long run anyway. But at least they knew that there was some, the things that I had been saying were real. So a lot of homies, it just made them like, damn, bro, the whole time, this brother's been telling the truth. It's like his girl was in a bad situation. She was in a bad way, health wise. And then look, she ends up passing away. So anyways, this is probably a good place to end this episode right here. The next episode, something happens where I'm going to get to release a lot of the frustration that I'm feeling. Like I said, I was like a powder keg at that point. I was ready to blow up on somebody. I just didn't know what or how to let it off. But Lencho, his punk ass, would do something that would end up triggering something else that would give me the perfect opportunity to let it out. And that's what I did. Anyways, this is probably a good time to go ahead and cut this one right here. If I'm going to get this third story out, I'm going to have to do it now. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode right here. I know it was a crazy one. I got 2 more like this that I got to get through. And, it's always tough losing somebody like this, man. Death is something that a lot of us don't understand. And when we lose somebody that's close to us like this, a lot of the times we blame ourselves for everybody has, everybody's gonna, at some point, they're gonna go. It's already set. Your destiny is already set. There's nothing that any one of us can do that can alter that course. I believe in that. I believe in fate. So, I don't think there was anything else that I could have done different that, would have kept her alive a little bit longer. It was meant to happen this way. I was meant to get arrested. I was meant to end up in that county jail for 10 years. She was meant to pass away the way that she did at the time she did. So, over time, I would, it would make it easier for me to accept things. It'd make it easier for me to accept my situation. I was like, at least now, and I know it kind of sounds messed up, but at least now I go to prison. I spend the rest of my life in prison. I don't got to worry about stressing over her or, what's going to happen to her. That's out the way. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode 81. I'm going to try to hit you guys with one more by Friday. We got that raffle coming up on Saturday. If you guys want to get into that raffle, you need to get your tickets in now, preferably through Cash App or Venmo, because like I said before, YouTube takes 30% of the money that comes in for that, and they're not entitled to it. So we prefer that if you're going to get into the raffle, that you'd either do it through Cash App, and that's Big Bank Takes Little Bank. And there's a picture, the The profile name is Junior Mendez. And then I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's a picture of me in my motorcycle gear. So that's the right one right there. As far as the Venmo is John/Mendoza/50. So that's the Venmo. Anyways, with that being said, I'm going to try to get that third one out tonight, the hat trick. We'll see if I'm able to do it. I want to try to get out as much content as I can. Saturday, we're going to be doing the raffle. So that's going to kind of take me off line for that day. If anything, I'll try to get some more content out to you guys tomorrow and Friday. So tap in, pay attention to what we post in our community, because a lot of the times YouTube doesn't put notifications out. So you guys got to check periodically, like around 3 o'clock. We usually drop stuff at nighttime. You guys should notice that by now. When we do that, because there's a lot of you that work early in the morning that like to, get that video early in the morning when you're going to your commute. You know what I mean? So anyways, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. It's episode 81. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This is your boy B, and I'm out.